What an eventful period is this! I have lived to see a diffusion of knowledge which has undermined superstition and error. I have lived to see the rights of men better understood than ever, and nations panting for liberty which seem to have lost the idea of it. These words, spoken by a Welsh minister in 1789, captured the electric spirit of an age when monarchies trembled and revolutions blazed across 2 continents. Richard Price, born in 1723 in Llanginor, Glamorgan, Wales, became one of the most influential voices for human freedom on both sides of the Atlantic, a philosopher whose ideas helped ignite the American and French revolutions. Price wasn't a warrior or a politician. He was a thinker, a dissenting minister who studied at Oxford and spent his life wielding the most powerful weapon of all, ideas. His works, particularly A Review of the Principal Questions in Morals and Observations on the Nature of Civil Liberty, laid philosophical foundations that would challenge empires. Benjamin Franklin treasured him as a correspondent and friend. Edmund Burke devoted his most famous work to refuting him. What made the Welsh philosopher so influential? His conviction that liberty wasn't a privilege granted by kings, but an inherent human right. In his writings on civil freedom, he declared, "In a free state, every man is his own legislator." This wasn't just political theory, it was revolutionary fire. Price distinguished between forms of oppression that plagued humanity. External slavery came from foreign conquest, but there was something equally pernicious. Internal slavery takes place wherever a whole community is governed by a part. Whether ruled by one monarch or a handful of aristocrats, people living under such systems were, in his view, no freer than property passed through inheritance. But the minister offered more than critique. He provided a vision of what society could become. He believed that moral principles weren't arbitrary human inventions, but universal truths discoverable through reason. "The conscience of a man is the man," he wrote. "The reflecting principle is our supreme principle. Our capacity for moral reasoning is what elevates us, what makes us truly human." When American colonies rose against Britain, many in England condemned them as rebels, not Price. When France erupted in upheaval, most British elites recoiled in horror, not Price. In his famous 1789 sermon, A Discourse on the Love of Our Country, delivered just months after the Bastille fell, he celebrated what he witnessed unfolding. He warned against false patriotism, the kind that glorifies conquest and domination. "What has the love of their country hitherto been among mankind?" he asked. "What has it been but a love of domination, a desire of conquest, and a thirst for grandeur and glory, by extending territory and enslaving surrounding countries?" True love of country, Price argued, meant something entirely different. It meant pursuing truth, virtue, and liberty for all people. He insisted, "We ought to consider ourselves as citizens of the world and take care to maintain a just regard to the rights of other countries." At the heart of his philosophy lay a profound belief in human connection. He championed what he called universal benevolence, which is an unspeakably nobler principle than any partial affections. Christianity, he argued, may, by way of distinction from all other religions, be called the religion of benevolence. He urged his listeners to remember that a narrower interest ought always to give way to a more extensive interest. This wasn't abstract philosophy. It was a call to recognize our shared humanity across all borders. Price also understood something that many champions of liberty forget. He observed that ignorance is the parent of bigotry, intolerance, persecution, and slavery. Freedom dies in darkness. Only through education, through the spread of knowledge, could societies hope to remain free. Against philosophers like Hume, who grounded morality in sentiment, Price insisted that the noblest principle in our nature is the regard to general justice and that goodwill which embraces all the world. Morality for Price was rational and universal, not merely a matter of taste or emotion. His vision provoked fury from Edmund Burke, who called Price's sermon a very extraordinary and miscellaneous sermon, and wrote his Reflections on the Revolution in France largely as a response. Burke attacked Price's celebration of the French Revolution, defending tradition and inherited rights against what he saw as dangerous abstractions. The debate between them became known as the Revolution controversy, one of the greatest political debates in British history. Mary Wollstonecraft and Thomas Paine both rushed to defend Price against Burke's assault. Price died in 1791, just as the revolutions he championed were entering their most turbulent phases. He never commanded armies or held high office, but his words marched across continents, inspiring those who believed that every human being possessed inherent dignity and rights. In an age when most of the world lived under kings and emperors, Richard Price dared to imagine something better and helped make that vision real. I'm grateful for the moments shared in discourse. May our paths cross again in the fullness of time.